This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIK.
When the hire was announced, I got a lot of calls and texts from guys at the college level, and they said, welcome to the something show. I'll leave it at that. I'll edit it.
There he is, Jim Nagy, Oklahoma General Manager, just getting back from over at the stadium. The media bonanza. We're at halftime, basically. Welcome into the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich, and talk to three of maybe the most important guys in the room right now here for Oklahoma football. Brent Venables, obviously Oklahoma head coach, going into what is going to be a rather interesting spring period, as well as a 2025 season that could very well decide his tenure in Norman, as well as John Mateer, the quarterback, the new quarterback to campus, as well as who you just saw, General Manager Jim Nagy. We're going to go through a couple of quick hits, right, coming out of all three of those press conferences that took place starting at about 11 a.m. on Wednesday. So just real quick, it was pretty good. I mean, all things considered, I was pretty impressed with all three of those guys today.
Yeah, look, you got what you got from Brent, which was a 23-minute opening statement, kind of just, that's what happens when we haven't talked to him since the bowl game. There's a lot to cover. But it was good to hear from John Mateer for the first time, at least for me. I thought he was super impressive, like super confident, very comfortable in that setting. And then Jim Nagy, he's everything that we thought he would be in terms of handling the media. Quick opening statement, took questions for about 30 minutes and was super impressive in every single one of his answers.
We'll get into everything that they said. Kind of the quick hit items. Obviously, Brent Venables went over a seemingly laundry list of injuries that Oklahoma will go into spring with, guys that won't be available during the spring, mostly guys that are expected to be contributors going into 2025. Not the best situation. Injuries, Oklahoma football. Who could have thunk it? As well as some of the stuff from John Mateer. But first, let us tell you about our friends over at Rowback. Good to have them on here with us at Soonerscoop.com. As you can see behind me, use the promo code Sooner20. Promo code Sooner20 if you're so inclined. Good looking hoodie pullover there. I know that me and you, George, we use quite a bit of Rowback, and that's even when they hadn't been with us.
Yeah, the Hezzy hoodie there with the OU logo. I know that some of my friends have the one with the logo. I have one without anything on it, but just the regular hoodie, and it's awesome. And then the polos. I wear their polos all the time to OU football games and media stuff, and so they've got a lot of really good stuff. I know joggers are big on there too. So
a very good Sunday wear,
yeah, and
really anytime wear. But Rowback, best fit, best feel. For those who are not familiar with Rowback, they've kind of completely changed everything in terms of not necessarily loungewear, but stuff that you can wear out to the golf course, or you can wear in to the office like you do sometimes.
It's great. It's awesome. It's a great company.
Everyday shorts, the Delta Performance Pants, certainly something that we're going to be wearing here during the spring on Soonerscoop.com. And once again, all you got to do is use the code as you see on the screen right behind us, Sooner20 for 20% off. Thank you to Rowback. All right, let's get into a little bit of it because it was our first time to talk to Brent Venables. Obviously, there's been a lot of comings and goings, whether that be through the transfer portal, like a John Mateer coming in from the transfer portal, or coaches leaving. Obviously, Zach Alley has left. Nate Dreiling taking over.
That feels like a year ago.
It does. Well, and it feels like it was about a year ago the last time that we talked to Brent Venables, and that was the day before all of the Zach Alley news came about. You wrote about Nate Dreiling, pretty good stuff on him, as well as Wes Goodwin, and then, of course, Jim Nagy.
Yeah, look, I think those two hires, the defensive hires, were a little bit overshadowed because everybody thought they were going to maybe get Jim Knowles, which would have been a great hire, right? That would have been a home run hire. But I think, and we've talked about it on here before, but those two guys, Dreiling and Goodwin, are very highly thought of in the coaching ranks. Obviously, Brent talked today about his relationship with Goodwin going back to their days at Clemson, and then kind of him and Dreiling and what he likes about Dreiling kind of coming from programs with less, I think is kind of what he said today. But I think both those guys are going to play a pivotal role. And then obviously Jim Nagy in that relationship, and we'll get into it a little bit more because Nagy talked a lot about it today, and so did Brent, just kind of what that looks like who makes the final decision on what, what's the structure. And it sounds like it's going to be a pretty good collaboration between those two.
All right, let's start it here with Brent Venables talking about the 3 new additions to the program and General Manager Jim Nagy, as well as inside linebackers coach Nate Dreiling, and then Wes Goodwin, who will come in and work a lot with the cheetah position.
Jim Nagy as our new GM. Couldn't be more thrilled, excited. The administration did a wonderful job of getting a really small pool of candidates, and through a very thorough interview process, there was a great alignment that Jim would be. I know it's been called a home run, but that's how we felt, inside as well. And then Nate Dreiling, if I could, one of the most attractive qualities that there was about Nate Dreiling is just a winner. Everything he's done, he's won. I recruited at his high school, Gino Grissom out of Hutchinson High School. Nate's dad was the head coach, Randy Dreiling, at the time, and I think they had won 5 straight state championships. They won more in a row there, but at that time maybe 5 or 6. And I said, Coach, man, how do you win 5 straight state championships? And he said, my secret sauce is we lift on game day. And I thought that was awesome. And I think more than anything, it just is a mentality. And this team thought they were going to physically beat people up. Obviously, I had a relationship with Wes that goes back quite a ways. And, he was a guy that I was likely going to hire as a position coach here on our first staff. And Coach Sweeney named him as the defensive coordinator. I wasn't surprised. Incredibly highly qualified, and he did a fantastic job while he was at Clemson. Every year they had different things that they achieved, but he's going to work specifically with our cheetahs. And
Brent Venables talking about his 3 new hires. Pretty good story from Nate Dreiling's dad, who you had talked to when you wrote the article about.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, that guy's a football guy through and through. So lifting weights on game days, no shocking surprise. Just from the 15 minutes I spoke to Randy Dreiling on the phone.
It was pretty funny. I got a kick out of it. That was one of the more lighter moments and what was somewhat of a serious conversation with Brent Venables, because it also, on top of all of the new hires, there was, I guess, a promotion of sorts, if you will. Brent Venables did name himself the defense coordinator for Oklahoma going into the 2025 season, and you asked him about it.
Yeah, look, I think that since the end of this last season, and even during the back end of last season, it was like, okay, Brent's going to get a 4th year. What does that look like? This is a year where it feels like his job is on the line. And when he names himself the defensive coordinator and comes out with the strong statement that he did when they announced that, which was basically, hey, I understand that this is a pivotal year and that we have to get back on track. And so he's taking the reins. I think that it's kind of almost, I don't know if it's the elephant in the room, but we haven't talked to Brent about that to say, hey, this is a big pivotal season for you and you're taking over as defensive coordinator. What does that say? And so I kind of asked that, and he gave one hell of an answer.
Why take our word for it when we could show you? Here he is, Brent Venables, on why he named himself the defense coordinator.
Yeah, well, every year's big, and for me, I know I've said that. I don't think people really well, that's just coach speak. But I go back to my first year when Bill Snyder hired me on an interim basis. You ever been hired on an interim basis where basically they said your job's on the line? I'm watching everything you do, and if your first screw up, there's no guarantee, and I'm also going to pay you pennies. All right. Well, that was my first time, and I was so thankful. But I've literally had that mindset my entire career. Every game's that way. Every day I show up, something's on the line. My job's on the line. I've had that for 30 years. Nothing's changing for me. Do we need to be better? You're damn right. Does your mindset got to change? Nope. And why am I going to call the defense? Because I'm good at it. And I'm confident in it. And we've got a great staff. And if I'm going to be successful, if the players are going to be successful, if the product is going to be what we want it to be, it's going to be because of all of us. And somebody's got to lead it. I did that in 23. We made improvement. In some areas, not as much as we wanted, but so I know what that looks like in managing game day and in season, out of season, the meeting room, practice field, all those things. I know what that looks like. when we get in that stadium, when they get in that stadium on game day and it's 3rd and 12 and you got to make the call, everything's quiet for me. It ain't loud. It ain't, oh my God, all this pressure. That ain't that way for me. That's a freaking safe place for me. It's as quiet as all get out. And that's just for whatever reason, that's how it's always been for me.
A lot of pressure here. And, I think that when you look at the defensive side of the football, there's obviously going to be, expected progression to be made, obviously, under Brent Venables' 4th year. They've done that over the first 3 years. It's going to be a lot about the offense and how that thing comes together. The unfortunate news on the offensive front as Oklahoma prepares to start practice on Thursday is the litany of injuries that Oklahoma will go into spring with. And a number of these guys will not be able to participate. On Wednesday, Brent went over kind of the list that Oklahoma will go into spring with the guys that are out. Heath Ozida, Logan Howland, Cade McIntyre, Jaden Jackson, all having basically cleanups on the shoulder. I think is basically what it comes down to. Labrum injuries from a year ago that they went in and, I had to have operations on. We saw that with Logan Howland. We had talked about that with Jaden Jackson. But to get this idea that, all 4 of those guys specifically, and you could even throw Jaden Jackson or all 3 of them, Jaden Jackson, Heath Ozida, and Logan Howland in there, it was going to be a big spring for those guys. Seth Freeman, Andy Bass, both going to be out with ACL injuries. Andy Bass, obviously, he tore his back in December during the bowl prep running scout team. KJ Daniels has a hamstring issue that he has dealt with, I guess, since arriving from high school. Javante Barnes is going to be out with a foot injury. That thing just continues to, it seems like, just kind of creep up. They're never able to get over it, as well as freshman offensive lineman Darius Afalava, who will not be available with a knee injury coming in from high school. Peyton Bowen, Gentry Williams, both be limited during the spring session. And then maybe the biggest news of all, and maybe the most unfortunate news of all, and we found out last night that yesterday Jaden Gibson, coming back from the patella injury, sounds like he's had a setback. We don't know how bad it's going to be, but certainly when you're talking about that wide receiver position that was marred by injuries a year ago, none of these injuries are great, but specifically with Jaden Gibson, I feel terrible for him.
Yeah, it just sucks, and it sounds like it was a non-contact injury, doing routes on air yesterday, and he had just started kind of getting back into the flow of things. And so to hear that news, it just sucks because he's a guy that I think we all thought could contribute last year, and then he gets hurt. I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd day of fall camp. And then it's like, okay, well, now he's rehabbing. Maybe he could come back and be just limited in spring and running around. And for him to get hurt this quickly as he comes back, it just sucks. And that's a position, unfortunately for Oklahoma over the last year, the injuries just continue to pile up. So, I think when you read off those injuries, Eddie, the ones that stick out are those 3 that you mentioned at the top, Jaden Jackson, Heath Ozida, who we didn't know about, and Logan Howland. Those are 3 guys that I anticipate starting next year for Oklahoma. So they're going to miss, and they're young guys. So they could really use the spring, use the summer to get, in the gym, put some weight on, get in shape, whatever it is. That's a big blow. So I don't think it's like some crazy massive panic for Oklahoma, but I think that these injuries certainly play a fact in how they're going to approach the spring. Look, they have less numbers than they've ever had before. Brent talked about that today because of the new scholarship limits. They're not going to play a spring game, which it sounds like was largely, chosen because of the injury situation that they've had over the last year.
Simply just don't have the numbers to put together 2 teams. And, I hate it. You hate it out there. I think that everybody's been pretty vocal about the elimination of the spring game or the format that we have been used to over the last however many years. But it also add in the fact that this is kind of the changing landscape. And you're going to hear that phrase a lot when you're hearing from Brent Venables or Jim Nagy or whomever. Things are just changing. Shit's changing. And as much as I hate it, I think everybody knows how much I hate change. Yeah. It sucks.
Well, and I think that people need to realize, and Brent kind of hinted at it today, spring's going to look a little different. I don't think they're going to have as many, physical days where they're hitting a lot or doing drills where guys can get injured because they know they have to have these guys healthy come fall camp. So I don't think it's going to be as strenuous this spring as it was a year ago. And when you read the list of names, it's like they just don't have the bodies to have, really tough practices.
Particularly sucks for the left side of that offensive line that when you're talking about Heath Ozida and Logan Howland, and we did
just having continuity. You know?
On Wednesday, we talked about that with Josh, just in terms of it was going to be, and it still is an important spring for those guys. You're just not going to be able to do as much on the field as you probably would have hoped.
Yeah. And even, what's Jacob Sexton, Jake Taylor, are they healthy and ready to go? Brent didn't mention them, so you'd assume so, but we'll see. The one positive does sound like Kendall Dolby's coming along nicely. I know Brent mentioned him as he's probably going to be limited in the spring, but it does sound like he is starting to, ramp up his process, which is good.
As expected, too, for Kendall when you're coming off a traumatic injury like he did there in, I guess somewhat of the middle of September against Tennessee. So that was kind of the injury situation. We will move forward, though, in the program and talk a little bit more about Jim Nagy. Obviously, there's a lot of questions when you're talking about, just the general manager hire in general. It seems like it's pretty broad and there's a lot of stuff to cover. But, specifically here in the interim, it's going to be about putting together that front office. And then that was something you asked him about today.
Yeah, I'm just interested. How big is this operation going to be, right? Like we've heard they're going to hire some scouts. They're going to hire some people to help with the contracts and all of those sorts of things. And so I just kind of wanted to know, hey, what does that look like? Like how many people are you looking to hire? What's the structure, the organization chart, right? Like who's ahead of who and how do they collaborate on recruiting? And that was a huge topic, it felt like, with Jim Nagy today. But I'm very curious to see how they end up building this thing out because it's not just about Jim Nagy, right? Like they want to build an entire front office that replicates something like the NFL. And I think Jim has a big task on his hands. And he said today, because I think a lot of people think, oh, he's going to come in and he's going to go get guys in the spring portal. And like, that's going to be his first thing. No, he's going to hire a staff and then he's going to evaluate this roster and see where do they need to go get guys to plug some holes. So I think that's what's going to be really interesting over these next few weeks is who is he bringing in? Because he talked a lot today about bringing in guys from the NFL level, which would be big hires.
Absolutely. Here is Jim Nagy talking about the structure, George's question on Wednesday about what this front office could look like.
Yeah, we're working through the staffing right now. The number thing, yes, we need to have a more robust staff. There's some good people in place who I met, and I've known Drew Hill forever. I think we go back 20-some years. He was the pro liaison at Fresno State when I was scouting on the West Coast as a young guy. So good people in place, but yeah, we're certainly going to be making a lot of hires. And the school's committed to that, and that's great. I mean, that's what it's going to take. So, in terms of the structure, we're working through like org chart stuff. I'm not going to get into details there, but we're going to bring in good people. Want to bring in some people with NFL experience. It's not just going to be me on the NFL from the NFL. We're going more of a pro model, so it's going to be important to bring some more people on that end. And also, I've got some blind spots too. Having never worked in college, and I'm aware of that. So, bringing in some more people that have experience at the college level and really lean on Drew. Joe Lee, people that are on the staff already.
Extensive work in the National Football League, 18 years working in front offices, I think with 6 or 7 various different teams. Obviously, We've talked about the resume and what he's been able to accomplish as well since taking over the Senior Bowl. A lot of connections, right, in terms of scouting college players, getting them to the Senior Bowl, that next step before you get to the NFL draft. A lot of connections with agents as well, and a lot of guys that it seems like are overlapping these days with representation in terms of guys that were graduated or going to the NFL, and now guys that are in school or coming out of high school and negotiations with those guys. And, Jim Nagy talked about it. You can see everything right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel from today in about a 30-minute press conference. But I think that like when you get that front office together, then you start thinking about players. And obviously, as you said, they're going to go over the current roster and all of the guys that, are currently on the roster. It seems it's going to be a cold world nowadays. Like the story of the walk-on, it seems, is maybe gone just in terms of you only have so many spots. It's like an NFL roster. You can't just be handing it out to, everybody because, their dad played wherever or they had a connection. But let's talk about scouting and what they're looking for within, when they go out to scout, whether it be high school or college.
It sounds like the way Nagy explained it, and I think they'll go out and get some hidden gems or whatever, but they're looking to get NFL caliber players on this roster. Like that was... I
mean, the way that he made it sounds like from top to bottom on the roster, you damn sure better be able to contribute. If you don't bring a whole lot, you're not going to be on this roster.
And he kind of gave you, 3 different things that you're looking for, whether it's traits, instincts, like you just need to be a good football player, which we hear Brent Venables talk about a lot. And that's where I think that they'll be really good. And then just like who you are as a person, what's your makeup personality wise, and kind of figuring out what you want in life. And I think that, Jim has obviously done that for the last 7 years now with the Senior Bowl, identifying the top talent in college football. So he makes a lot of sense for this position. I think it's about building relationships for him. He's going to have a lot of connections with the agents, which I think is going to be a huge help. When you talk about the best players in college football and the guys that jump in the portal, they're often now represented by agents. And Jim Nagy knows how to deal with those people. He's going to have people in place that are going to be able to help with contract negotiations and things like that. But I think his ability to evaluate those players in the portal or high school level, and then also talk to those agents and build those relationships is going to be huge. So I thought it was fascinating to hear kind of what he's looking for when you're looking, because he kind of said, and I know the big question out there among fans is like, well, so if Brent likes a player and Nagy likes a player, like how, which one do they pick? It sounds like Nagy and his staff is going to be doing the evaluations, and then Brent and his staff are going to be the ones to go out and recruit and get them to come on campus.
Great quote from Jim Nagy on Wednesday, talking about, I like nothing more than sitting in a dark room and watching tape. I thought about Josh McCuistion when I heard that. Here is Jim Nagy just talking about what he's looking for when they're going to go out looking for players.
Coming from Seattle, and I was part of a couple different models. Patriots and Seattle were two very different buildings, two very different cultures that I was a part of. But when it comes down to what we look for in football players, I mean, this is going to be a traits-driven roster. I mean, to boil it down in its simplest form, when you walk out on a football field on a college football Saturday, and what you'll see the NFL scouts down there with their notebooks, and what they're doing is they're body typing players. There's something to be said. The team that usually looks the part and looks better on the hoof is the better football team. So if we're just trying to get it down to its most simplistic form, so we're going to be a traits-driven team, but they have to be good football players. So people say, what do you look for at this position, that position? To me, you have to be instinctive at every position. If you're not an instinctive football player, you better have rare speed or some rare physical trait to overcome, maybe a lack of instincts. Like for a linebacker, if a guy's not really instinctive, doesn't see it quickly, well, he better be able to roll. He better be able to make up for that with foot speed. So we are going to be a traits-driven organization for sure. And then again, I really lean heavily into the makeup of a player. I think watching the tape is the easiest part, especially if you've done this as long as I've done it. The hardest part is figuring out the person. And it's probably a little easier at the college level than at the pro level because you get to spend a lot more time with them through recruiting here in college than the NFL guys do. Literally, they've got like 3 months to figure these guys out right now. So that's what I would say. I mean, we just need to find the right guys. You guys that love football, guys that are highly competitive, guys that want to be around the building. When I was a scout, I would come into buildings and ask the secretaries, who's around here a lot. Do you see so and so around here? And if the answer was no, he's not really around here very much, well, that was a huge red flag for me. So we want guys that love football, and it's easy to say, like, you can't ask a player if he loves football. Of course, he's going to say yes. So we got to figure out ways through recruiting, like we had to in the NFL. Like, how are we getting to that answer? How are we really going to figure out which guys love it?
Increasingly clear why I never had a future in the NFL.
Yeah, it's funny though, listening to him speak, like when he talks about the teams that usually look the part, they're usually the better team. What do we always say on here? It's like OU needs more guys that when they get off the bus,
look the part.
They look the part, yeah. Right? And I think you look at the last couple of years, OU's only sent 3 guys to the combine, right? This year and the previous year, they only sent 3 guys. You got to have more than that. And I know that's kind of the topic right now because the combine just happened, but that's what Jim Nagy's talking about. They need to get more players in here that are going to be NFL players someday. You look at Texas, right? Texas had 14 guys, 15 guys at the combine this year. OU's got to get closer to that number.
Sure.
And they have in the past, right? We've seen it in the past. OU's been able to do that. So I think that, it's the right approach. They need to get just better players with those type of traits.
Jim Nagy got a lot of work to do here as he takes over the general manager role at Oklahoma. We'll have a little bit more from him here in a second. We did talk to John Mateer today. And I think in just kind of a TLDR type summary, not short on confidence.
No, I mean, is he Baker Mayfield up there? No one is. But the dude is definitely comfortable. Got up there. I think he said, "Hey, how you guys doing?" And
certainly been around it. I mean, I'm sure that I think he made the comment about the cameras and there's a lot of people in here, but certainly somebody that has been through this. He's been through the doldrums of being a guy on campus, right?
Yeah, he has at Washington State. Now, I still think it's an adjustment at a place like Oklahoma from Washington State, but he has seemed so far to totally embrace it. And, I thought you mentioned something really interesting too from when we were talking there, but he said that he kept saying, he's like, oh yeah, I'm the starter. I've never really been the starter before in terms of like from day one. And it seems like he has really embraced kind of that leadership role of being quarterback one at a major university like OU.
We'll hear from John Mateer here in a second on what George was talking about. Here is Brent Venables talking about getting to know John Mateer here over the last couple of months since he arrived in Norman, as well as John Mateer and just kind of what it's been like here in Norman and taking over a quarterback position.
That's a great question. I think he's got great competitive maturity to him and competitive toughness. He's consistent. He likes the locker room. He's a football junkie, a gym rat. He's up at the facility nonstop. He's got one other person other than a coach that puts in more hours than him. It's Jaron Canick. And so I think it's his cross to bear to be in the facility more than Jaron Canick. And but no, I say that he's blended in and transitioned incredibly well. He's about that work. Players recognize his talent immediately, but he's incredibly competitive. He's got a great maturity about him, and he's a very process-driven, young guy.
I don't really think about the expectations too much. It's definitely not. I don't put pressure on myself. I think it's real important to focus on the daily and my own process and teaching all the guys the new offense that we're bringing in. And we had success last year, and there's a lot of talented guys on this offense, so I think we'll do a good job. I've had a lot of close friends throughout my whole life. They're huge Oklahoma fans. One of my good buddies goes to school here, and another one. We all hang out, and it's all pretty surreal. I mean, I'm a quarterback Oklahoma Sooners, it's wild. But I'm here, and I feel blessed to do it, and it's close to home, which is great. My family loves it, obviously, because I'm so close. But, it goes back to, the expectations and the pressure. I think it's just a privilege and an opportunity to be here and work as hard as I can with all the resources I have and the great teammates I have around me to just put my best performance on the field. I walk past it every day. I park right there, and there's 7 statues right there. It's pretty cool. I don't think about it every day and that's what I want, because that's something that can happen as an outcome of the process that you do every day. And I want to win games, and you win enough games, that'll happen. That could happen. But that's not the first priority. It'd be really cool, It would. I'm not going to say it won't. But winning games is the most important, and then we'll see what happens after that.
There's something that comes with the expectations at Oklahoma. We've talked about it, it seems like, for over the last couple of years. I don't think that there's anything that can prepare somebody to handle the type of scrutiny that I think we saw this past year with some of the quarterback play, and then everything that comes with Oklahoma football and the passion of the fan base. I mean,
the expectation at OU in the last decade or so is to, if you're the quarterback at Oklahoma, you're in the Heisman conversation, right? That's the reality. And it's probably a bit unfair for a guy like John Mateer, but he's a guy that's coming into a situation where, we talked about it on here. He is the key to, the success and maybe even people keeping their jobs next year. And I think that he seems to understand that. I think he's kind of blocking some of that noise out.
Sure.
But it's hard when, he just talked about it. Every morning he walks by those 7 statues and he sees them. But I think that he has the right mindset in terms of that's cool. That'd be really cool, right, to win that award or be in that conversation. But right now it's about winning football games. And if Oklahoma can do that, then everything else will fall into place.
I suppose all of it will begin, right, tomorrow when they hit the field for the first time. The spring schedule a little bit, it's not messed up by any means. They have spring break in the middle of it. Obviously, you don't get that ending or the everything that everybody wanted with the spring game. But there are a lot of steps that can be made here over the next couple of weeks in not only installing a new offense, and we talked about that with Josh. We talked about it on Monday as well, with just a familiarity with Ben Arbuckle and what they're going to try to install here in this first portion of the spring?
It's huge. I mean, these next few weeks, this next month of practice is really the beginning of whatever this offense is going to look like, and it's not going to be pretty at times, I'm sure, in practice. You're missing several guys, especially on the offensive line, that would probably be starters for you, but I think chemistry between Mateer and those receivers, the tight ends, you got a whole new group of tight ends that are going to have to learn this system. But I think all of that is super key these next few weeks for Mateer to kind of be that leader. And it's one thing to have the offensive coordinator come in and install, but then it's really nice for Oklahoma to have the quarterback who understands it just as well as Arbuckle, or nearly as well as Arbuckle, to also relay it. Because I think I'm sure it comes differently from both of them when they're teaching it to the guys. So it's huge that you have both those guys there, and now it's all about kind of implementing it and just building some of that chemistry.
Before we get out of here and head back over to the stadium to talk to some of the brand new guys within the program, whether it be the transfers or some of the new incoming freshmen, let's hear a little bit more from John Mateer.
I mean, I'll be honest, I used to struggle with the word fun on the field because if I'm not winning, like, it's not fun if you're not winning. We had a lot of success this past year, so it was fun. People say I have swag. I mean, you just play football. I have the ball in my hand every play. I mean, I get the opportunity to do something with it, and the camera's on me all the time, so I guess I have swag. Some people say I have toughness. I just feel like I have an obligation to give everything I have for my teammates. I guess that's where that comes from. Well, I actually wasn't the starter all last year. I was in the quarterback competition until second to last week fall camp. So this is my first full year, like being able to embrace the opportunity. And it's been great. Like some of the stuff I'm just winging it, but I mean the leadership is something that I was gifted with. And then just building relationships with people and showing my teammates that I really care about them. I want them to succeed.
Not short on confidence is this guy.
I love his West Texas accent he's got going there. I mean, that's very deep Southern Texas accent, I feel like.
Those are people from Texas. That they
I know, but it's just,
see what happens when people come all the way down from Tulsa. They just don't understand what we're doing down here in the South. Yeah, it's just the Northerners from Tulsa, which is kind of interesting since you Civil War thing. It was more of the South with you, but that's neither here nor there. That's SEC territory. Little bit more from Jim Nagy before we get out of here, because I do think that, like, as a whole, it is going to be interesting to see how these two married, these two being Brent Venables and Jim Nagy, how they marry all of their ideas together to make whatever this product is going to be.
I mean, look, for this thing to succeed, there's going to have to be a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication between those two. And obviously Brent's first 3 years haven't gone as he had hoped, but I think bringing in Jim Nagy, if they can see eye to eye in Brent, allow him to take some of stuff off his plate, which was a big conversation today, I think this thing can succeed. And, I thought Nagy was really strong in his press conference. He answered every question the way that you would want to hear it answered, and he has a very clear vision of what this thing's going to look like. And so now it's up to him to build it. And look, I don't think you're going to see, I got asked the other day, like, what are you going to see next season from, the immediate impact from Nagy? I don't think you're going to see it much next season. Mm-hmm. Now, I think they're going to be pretty active in the spring portal, and they'll go add a few guys, and maybe those guys are some difference makers, but you're not going to see the real benefit of this thing for a few years. And I think that it's going to be a process, but I do like the vision and the direction of this thing. They just need to go win some football games next year. And, it's interesting. We have the big media day today. One thing that may be going to the radar, Bill Conley, I don't know if you saw this, Bill Conley put out his, strength of schedule based on advanced analytics on ESPN today. OU, by far, has the hardest schedule in the country. And so, and I think he even put something in there like they're going to have to be top 5 in the country just to get to 9-3.
Yeah.
And so you got to find a way next year, Eddie. You got to find a way, if you're Brent Venables, to win some games, because I do think you have a good vision. You have some good leadership in Jim Nagy. He's going to make some good hires, I'm sure, to build this thing out. But you really need to go win and get some momentum next year.
Yeah, I saw the Bill Conley thing that was kind of running around on Wednesday morning, and my first thought was Percocet, Vicodin, medical marijuana, and 40s. That might be the only way that we get through this next season. If Jim Nagy doesn't have you fired up, maybe this will.
growing up as a kid wanting to get into scouting, I was so focused on the National Football League, and now these jobs are, evolving in college football. And it's just a great opportunity, great place. Wanted to go somewhere where I could win championships. We could win championships, and this is certainly that place. So, just ready for that next challenge. I mean, this is a really cool opportunity. I think a lot of schools right now are saying they're going to a new model, and maybe not really fully embracing a new model. And that's what I felt when I was here on the interview. I really felt that from the leadership here, that they were ready to embrace this. And I'm just excited to get to work with Coach Venables. I mean, it's going to be a great partnership. He's a great coach. Just over the years, seeing him at Clemson, I don't go way back to when he was here at Oklahoma the first time. I wasn't in this part of the country, but watching him do his thing and teach guys on the field and motivate those guys at Clemson was great. Now I just want to come in and help him find really good players.
Like the quarter zip from Jim Nagy as well. That's a
good
good start here to a Media Day bonanza. We're headed back over to the stadium. Going to be talking with transfers. We're going to be talking with all the freshmen coming into the program here on Wednesday evening ahead of first practice for Oklahoma starting spring ball, which I believe we are invited to for a little bit on Thursday.
Yeah, 25 minutes.
Okay.
So
I'll be ready. We'll need to charge some batteries, though, with all of the video that we're doing. You can see everything here on SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel, as well as the editorial channel where Brent Venables and John Mateer are. That's where all the player interviews will go. And we will be back on Thursday to kind of wrap everything up from what the players are talking about over at the stadium tonight as they, I guess in an essence, start their Oklahoma careers.
Yeah.
And then obviously plenty of coverage on SoonerScoop.com. $1 to join right now, which isn't a bad deal for even ya poors that are in the comment section. So for George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.